The Universal Law of Relativity is one of the easiest laws to understand. Where the challenge lies is how you can apply this law to advance your life and make progress. Hello again, everybody. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. And today we're going to go over the next universal law in our little series. And we're going to start off by explaining the Universal Law of Relativity, which is an easy law to understand. But the key thing is, how do you apply what you know so that you can use it and make progress? Which, by the way, is true for all of the universal laws. To understand them, and once you do, then it gives you certainty in your actions so that you can move forward. All right, let's start off. First of all, the law of relativity is the universal law that states that all things are relative. Nothing is good or bad, it's just relative. We're the ones that determine if something is good or bad, but in a relationship, everything is how you relate it to something else. I want to give you several examples just to make this about as clear as we possibly can. All right, let's first talk about the weather. People love to talk about the weather. All right, well, I live in a cold weather climate, and when the weather is 20 degrees outside, I'm used to that. That's the way it is. If I live in Texas and it's 20 degrees, or I live in Florida and it's 20 degrees, well, that's freezing cold. By the same token, during the summers in Texas are unbelievably hot. I've been there during that time, and it's not for me. It's not what I really get excited about. But the people in Texas, they love it, they live with it, and it's just part of being there. So everything that you experience is a relative thing. Let's talk a little bit about money. Now, there are a lot of people out there that say, boy, I wish I had more money, and me amongst them. And one of the things that you need to comprehend, once again, in the law of relativity is this fact. If you're somebody that makes $24,000 a year, you are in the top 10% of income earners in the entire world. Not in the United States, not in Canada, but in the world. Once again, everything is relative. To somebody that's making $14 a month, your $24,000 a year is something that is not even imaginable. It's wealth beyond what you can even think about. Let me give you a couple more. When I was younger, we lived in, you don't know, when you're young, you don't know whether you're rich, whether you're poor, it just is. Well, we were kind of middle class. We lived in a neighborhood, and as I grew older, made friends with other kids that lived in the same town. One of them was a buddy. They lived in like the very, very wealthy section of Boston. All right, it's called Fisher Hill, and a lot of very famous people lived there. Larry Bird lived there. Bob Orr lived there. A lot of famous people that had money lived there. Arthur Fiedler, who was the director of the Boston Pops, lived there. All right, so it's a very, very wealthy neighborhood. And one of my friends that I became friendly with from another school lived on Fisher Hill. Well, the first time that I was invited to his house was just a jaw-dropping experience for me. When I went into his house, he had a hallway. The house was huge, needless to say, in the hallway. And in the hallway, he had two like hockey nets, one on one side, one on the other. We had hockey sticks, he had an indoor puck, and in his actual house, we played street hockey in his house. To me, that was just a mind-blowing experience. First of all, it's like my parents would have said, this isn't outside, all right? For his parents, it was like, okay, we got the room, you got it, play. All right, I mean, right in the hallway of his house. Another thing is, take a look at dogs, all right? If you have a dog at home, is your dog a big dog or a little dog? Well, all that depends upon what you're comparing it to. One of my favorites was when I was younger, my parents had me go to religious school. And in religious school, by the time you reached, there were 6 grades of religious school. So we went to public school, and then after public school, we went to religious school. Well, in the religious school, by the time you got to the 4th grade, they had the smart class, and they had the dumb class. And it wasn't, to be candid with you, religious school was not all that important to me at the time. So I had what was the very best position that you could possibly have. I was the smartest kid in the dumb class. Boy, was it easy. When we had tests, the teachers would give you the questions, the answers. All you had to do was memorize them. And then when you got the test, write them out. I don't know why the other kids couldn't do that. I spent the time. I did it. I was the smartest kid in the dumb class. Eli, let me tell you something that you can really excuse me, that you can really relate to. When I was a teenager and a basketball player, I used to go down on the playground, and there were people that would come down, and there were some of the guys that were like, 19, 20, 21 years old, and they'd come down, and here I am 16, 17 years old. I'm the, one of the high school guys. And so we'd play competitively, and the games could get chippy, all right? Anyway, this one guy who, he said, "Oh, Eli's dead, I'll kick your butt. Let's play one-on-one, I'll kick your butt." And I said, "Well, I'd be happy to play you one-on-one, but I'm not going to play you for nothing." I was a kid, I wanted to make some money, and I knew how I could beat this guy. So one of the things that you learn when you have coaching is that when you have the ball and the guy's defending you, if he has 1 foot forward, more forward than the other, you can beat him to the side where he has the foot forward. So we would play these games to like 11, one-on-one. Winner, you make it, you take it. So what I would do is I would get the ball and I'd just pivot around a little bit and watch his feet. And as soon as I saw one of his feet go forward, I knew that I could beat him to that side. Fortunately for me, as I've been preaching to you, make sure you're able to do things with your left hand. I was able to do things with my left hand. So time after time after time, I'd get the ball, I see which foot this guy had forward. If it was his left foot, then I would go to the right. If it was his right foot, then I would go to the left. And he was getting so frustrated. And this guy wanted to play me over and over and over and over until finally he said, "Enough already, I'm not playing you anymore." But in the meantime, I made myself a pretty nice little income playing basketball with this guy. All right, so that's kind of using the law of relativity, just seeing what's there, taking advantage of it. All right, but let's talk about, all right, so the law of relativity is kind of easy to understand. Okay, one more quick example. My sister is 4 or 5 years older than I, depending upon the time of year. And so we went to the same grammar school and the same high school. Now, we went to the same grammar school. My sister, unfortunately for me, was like very, very smart, all right? Much smarter than I am. And so in school, she did unbelievably well. So when I got into school and we had many of the same teachers, they would always say, "Oh, are you Amy's brother?" And I'd say, "Yes." Okay, my last name is like, there's no mistaking that I'm Amy's brother, all right? So they expected me to be the same genius that she was. And I wasn't quite, all right? I did the best I could. I did all right. I did, I got good grades, but I was not able to do as well as my sister did. So once again, there's a law of relativity. Now, look, that brings us kind of to a point where you want to talk about, I want to talk a little bit about your parents. Now, your parents, for the most part, 95%, what they want to do is all your parents want to see you do well. I want to see you do well, Eli. One of the things that they, kind of doctrines that they hold dear is you're going to do well in school, you're going to get yourself a good job, you're going to make money, everything's going to be, step by step by step, it's going to be safe because you're going to learn this and you're going to learn that, then you're going to learn this, you're going to learn that. That's fine. However, you have to learn that one of the things that enables you to make money is by taking risks. And that's one of the things that your parents, especially for the most part, don't want you to do. They want you to be safe. They want you to do everything right. They don't want you to make mistakes. Eli, the way to learn is to make mistakes. The way to learn is to take some risks. Now, it's my job as your parent to make sure that you don't take ridiculous risks, but it's necessary that you go out there, you put yourself out there, you take a shot, and you fail sometimes because you learn a lot by failing. So, once again, the law of relativity, my cousin Larry said it best, okay? He's one of the sages of our family. And he used to say, you can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your relatives, all right? So you have what you have, what you have. And a lot of times, people's relatives are the things that keep them from being great achievers, because they say, don't do that, do the safe thing. Don't do that, do the thing that you know how to do. Don't challenge yourself beyond your means. The only way to achieve excellence is to challenge yourself beyond your means, beyond what you can see, beyond what you can do, so that your reach exceeds your grasp. All right, this is a very key point. Now, once again, talking about the law of relativity, one of the things that we do is we compare ourselves to other people. I constantly am telling you on the negative side, when I see your test score and I see, oh, you got a C, and you go, yeah, but Joey got a D, all right, which then makes me say the famous phrase that parents always say to their kids, if Joey jumped off the Empire State Building, would you jump off the Empire? Okay, so don't compare yourself to Joey. Don't compare yourself to mediocrity. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Steph Curry, they don't compare themselves to the other players in the NBA. They have their own standards. They compare themselves to what they can possibly do. That's the key. You have to raise your standards. When you raise your standards, then the law of relativity works in a more positive way for you. Okay? Now, one of the things that you want to keep in mind is, like we said before, there's always people that are worse off than you are. That's one of the things that helps you when you see that, to say to yourself, boy, am I grateful that I'm not him, or am I grateful that I don't have her circumstances. These are key elements, and here's, like I said, one of the keys to making and taking advantage of the law of relativity is using it. The challenge is using it. So here's where you use it. When you're able to see that you have something on the ball in a particular area, be grateful, be positive. There are so many people out there that all they do is they whine and they whiz and moan about this and whiz and moan about that, and if only I had that, and only this circumstance was better. That's not the way to be. And there's also a very good reason for that. Number one, when you give off that positive vibe of being grateful, guess what kind of a vibe you're going to get back from the universe? So by the same token, if you give off the vibe of not being grateful, of saying, oh, I should have this and I should have that, the universe responds in kind. Why is that? Once again, a law is a law is a law is a law. Just like gravity, the apple always falls down, but it doesn't judge good or bad. So, once again, the law of relativity is there is no good, there is no bad, there is no big, there is no small. Everything is relative to what it is you're comparing it to. That's easy to understand. The challenge is to take advantage of that and to see yourself in a positive light, that you have a number of good things. First thing is, are you breathing? All right, you're much better off than someone that isn't breathing. All right, so that you can always go back to that. Grasp, hold on to, embrace the things that are positive so that you can send out that positive vibe. And when you send out that positive vibe, the universe will respond in kind. And when you send out the negative vibe, the universe will react in kind, which is not what you want to do. Good things will happen when you're a positive person. See everything as the glass half full, not half empty. All right? Now, let's give a thought for the day. And our thought for the day comes from Albert Einstein. When you're courting a nice girl, an hour seems like a second. When you sit on a red-hot cinder, a second seems like an hour. Now that's relativity. And because we will never end a meeting on a philosophical note, let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.